Alright guys, welcome back to another video with Old Florida. My name is Mike. Today we're going to be taking a look at tying the shark bait fly. This is a great big shark pattern and let's jump into it. First thing we're going to do is take our thread. We're going to start it right behind the eye of the hook and dress this hook. We're going to stop right at the point of this hook and we're going to wrap back to the eye and then back down to the point again. This just creates a nice little thread base that really allows the materials to bite into a lot better. Next step is we're going to take our red schlappen and orange schlappen and we're going to take 5 of each, and you don't really have to worry about matching them identically. What we're actually going to do is just match the tips up of all of these feathers. If you can get them kind of the same size, that would be preferred, but it's not really necessary. And we're going to take the tips when they're matched up of both of these feathers, and we're literally just going to mash them together. Once we got them mashed together, I'm going to kind of roll them in my fingers, just so we get kind of a blended color of orange and red. And if you have any longer ones, you could just pick them out and place them back at the right length. So once we have a nice little clump of tail, we're going to just measure those about 2 lengths on the shank of the hook. I'm going to grab everything in my hand. I'm going to pinch wrap these extremely tight right in the front of that point of the hook. I'm going to create a nice, really tight grip on these feathers, giving it a couple really good wraps. And then you can come in here with some bad scissors preferably, and we could just trim off all of those barbs. You can use good scissors, but I'd prefer not to. So once we got that all cleaned up, we can go ahead and wrap that down nice and neat. Once we got that down wrapped, we're going to come in here with our Flashabou. I'm going to take 6 strands of full-length Flashabou. And I'm going to move my thread to right behind the eye of the hook. I'm going to go ahead and grab my Flashabou and make a V with it, bring it to the top of the shank of the hook, and with that V I'm going to pull on both sides and wrap 6 and 6 strands on both sides, and that's going to give us our nice flash. I'm also going to come in here and cover up that front section of the hook nice and neatly, because we will be covering that with deer hair. So once I have my flash in there, I'm going to come in here with marabou. I'm going to grab my big patch of marabou, select 2 or 3 good looking feathers, nice full feathers. I'm going to move my thread right in front of that little ball that we created with the hackle tying them on, and I'm going to go ahead and tie this marabou right on the top of the shank of the hook with 2 nice wraps, 3 nice wraps actually. That's going to be the collar, and then I'm going to do the same thing but on the bottom side. I'm going to find a fluffier feather though. Alright, once we get a nicer feather, I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing. I'm just pulling that bulk out the bottom so it's easier to work with. Go ahead and pull that on both sides of the hook. I'm just going to clean that up a nice little bit, giving it a nice couple tight wraps so I know they're secure. And then you could go ahead and trim that out. pull everything back, and clean those wraps up again. Alright, the next fun part is deer hair. We're going to be working with deer hair for the head. This is actually a very key feature in this fly as it's very buoyant and it keeps the fly afloat. You actually don't want this fly to sink. This is just supposed to sit on the top of the water column and undulate, but I'll get into that more at the end of the video. So next we're going to take a clump of deer hair, about 2 pencil lengths or widths thick, and we're just going to pinch the tips by our hand, pull out the under fluff that comes along with deer hair. Once we got all of that pinched out, I'm going to come in here. Working with deer hair can be a little bit daunting at first. I'm going to place those tips right on the top of the shank of the hook, and then I'm going to roll them all the way over to encapsulate the hook. And I'm going to take 1 nice loose wrap, 2 nice loose wraps, and then a third. And then I'm going to start to cinch this, and as you'll see, it's going to start to twirl, and that's what we're looking for. And then once it starts twirling, I'm just going to try to pull this fiber back and work my thread, trying to not catch any fibers at all, just working it through that clump of deer hair. So that was the first method of doing this. We're actually going to do a different method for the next 2 or 4 clumps, depending on how much room we have. So I'm going to take my fingers, I'm going to go ahead and push that back as hard as I can, pull everything nice back as tight as possible, and create a small little thread dam to keep all those materials back. And once I have everything pulled back like that, we can start the second clump. What I'm going to do is grab a little bit bigger of a clump, maybe 2.5 thick pencil width, and I'm going to cut the tips off of it. This just allows a little bit easier to work with. And then I'm going to go ahead and pull the under fluff out. And then for this next clump, I'm going to move my thread right into the middle of that little gap. I'm going to place that whole clump on top, and with my ring finger, I'm going to keep my ring finger pressed very tightly against the shank of the hook so this material doesn't rotate. I'm also going to give it 4 really tight wraps so it doesn't move, and then I'm going to go ahead and invert the fly, and then I'm going to repeat that same exact process. So another big clump of deer hair, maybe 2.5 pencil widths thick. Cut that off the deer hair hide. Once you get that off, I'm going to go ahead and clean those bottom fibers up again. If you want, you could tap them on your hand to even up the butts. And then we're going to come in here and trim the very tips of those fibers off again. Same exact step. I'm going to come from behind the hook, place these on the underside, ring finger very tightly against, and then once you got that wrapped once, you can let go and then keep wrapping, making sure that we don't capture any of the material that we don't want to, just working our thread nice all the way around, wiggling it back and forth all the way to the front of the eye of the hook. Halfway through we can stop and push back all that material with our index and thumb finger as hard as possible. Just be very careful not to slip and hit that point. And once we work our way to the eye of the hook, we'll pull everything back again nice and tight, making sure it's all secure. Pulling all the material back, and then whip finishing this. 2 sets of 3 or 4 is more than enough. I would very highly not recommend using glue. I think sharks can definitely smell the glue, and I've personally fished ones with glue and they are not even close to as effective as the ones without. So that's going to be more or less the done tying of the fly. If you want, you can come in here quickly and trim this. You don't really have to. If you are going to tie a whole bunch of these, you can all trim them at once just so you don't have to clean up, but having them bushy, it actually helps with the buoyancy of this fly, which is why this fly is actually tied. It's supposed to just undulate in the current with the big fluffy head that keeps it afloat. I will come in here just a little bit and touch it with a razor blade. Try not to take too much off, but you can trim this fly. As you can see, I kind of captured just a little bit while working my thread through that. It's totally okay. So just trying to make it look better for the fisherman and not for the fish. All right. So that's going to be the done fly. This is the shark bait fly. This actually just sits on the surface of the water column. When you have your chum out and you get big sharks coming into the spread, these feathers undulate with the flash. The head keeps it up, and all you have to do is wait for the strike. It's pretty crazy how hard they hit. I would suggest pinching down that barb just to practice safe catch and release. There's no reason to have that barb in there. Beside that, this is an awesome, pretty easy pattern. The deer hair is a little bit tricky to work with, but once you do a little bit of it, it becomes easier and easier. This is just a great, nice shark pattern. I love it. I have a whole bunch of them in my box, and I wouldn't leave home without them. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. If you have any other questions, feel free to contact the shop anytime. We also offer free shipping anywhere in the US with no minimum. Have a great day.